Days the crowds emerge at 3 p.m. In September, performers come out with their stands. The doves unfold like paper in a street magician's hands. And the new money is good for bread, and the old money for salt, yeast, sugar. The old money in one pocket, the new in the other. On the table is our dictionary, a long time for Nika to say, "You are tender," and me back, "You are tender." The bath, the white tub, Turkish coffee on a white chair. For a long while, I've been too fast to talk. I should take my time with words. The words are precious. An hour for the coffee on the fire. A dove. So taking a comfortable seat. Squaring off your knees if you're sitting, your feet flat on the floor. Just resting your hands in your lap in that position of receptivity and repose. And just feeling yourself gently floating like a feather into this moment. Softening the shoulders. And then the muscles of the face, just being aware of how tightly we hold them, how guarded we hold our own faces. The muscles around the eyes and the jaw, around the mouth, the back of the neck, just lengthening the neck ever so slightly, straightening the back as best you can, not rigidly, but in a state of poise and presence. Then we're in it. We feel the walls widening, a sense of spaciousness there had been in the room. The ceiling rising. And as you deepen that breath to 4 counts in, with a little pause at the top, as if going up the escalator, and then exhaling to the count of 5. Breathing in, we get distance from all of this turmoil and entanglement. We see the world as an illusion. And we turn around and go back down in it. Breathing in to the count of 4, little pause at the top. And then exhaling to the count of 5. Back down into the world with Christina and her oranges. And then softening everything all over again. The shoulders, the muscles around the mouth and the jaw, and the eyes. And just feeling that cathedral door of the heart creaking open. Just for this moment, just for this half an hour, everything is allowed in. And anything can escape if it wants, a thought or a to do or a should or a could have been. It's 2 more breaths. Breathing in, I know this world of separation is an illusion. Breathing out, I choose this world. To relieve the suffering of others however I can. Keeping that cathedral door open, letting everything pass out and pass through impassively. The dove. Dazed, the crowds emerge at 3 p.m. In September, performers come out with their stands. The doves unfold like paper in a street magician's hands. And the new money is good for bread, and the old money for salt, yeast, sugar. The old money in one pocket, the new in the other. On the table is our dictionary. A long time for Nika to say, "You are tender," and me back, "You are tender." The bath, the white tub, Turkish coffee on a white chair. For a long while, I've been too fast to talk. I should take my time with words. The words are precious. An hour for the coffee on the fire. A dove. So this is the concluding session in this semester where we've been looking at aspects or flavors of the loving heart. And it began with a remembrance of Myra Scleroux, who died on New Year's Eve last year, and whose memorial is going to be tomorrow at American University's K Spiritual Center. It's a fitting bookend to this subject, which to me she epitomized so well, the flavor of a loving heart. And I thought about what kind of poet I was, and then suddenly remembered this poem I wrote in the fall of 1995 when I first arrived in the Czech Republic, where I would teach for 2 years. And I see so much of the poet that I still am in this poem. It's kind of rare to go back to those early poems and even recognize yourself. But now and then you'll see a poem that is what I call the poem of the future. It's a poem that is really more of the caliber of the poem that you'll write later in your career. But they kind of visit you by grace, and they arrive and they say, this is what it's going to look like from now on. This is the poem of the future. So that was the kind of poem that this turned out to be. But a lot of the themes that I'm still interested in are here in this poem, The Dove. The mindfulness is here, as we'll talk about in a minute, and some other themes that are coming up only just now in a new book that I'm writing. So it was kind of shocking for me. And of course, the theme of the dove, what the dove poet is. But the beauty of writing poetry for me is that it's a way of consciously bearing witness to your life wherever you're at, year by year, decade by decade, so that as you look back on these early poems, you see unabashedly who you really were, and in many ways who you still are. I still see that 26-year-old that I was, scrawling poems at a little cafe. This poem began with a kind of lovely encounter. I had arrived in September, and I was teaching classes to students who spoke hardly any English. My colleagues were wonderful. They spoke English, and we had conversations in our offices. But then I was mostly alone for the rest of the day. When I got out of my classes, it was 1:30 in the afternoon. I didn't have many friends at that point, so I went to the cafe and I would write poems. And there was one place called the Sukrarna that had a kind of bottomless coffee uh, um, special where you ordered a little mug of coffee and they would come up and fill it up for you. And the waitress at this cafe was lovely. And I'm sure it was also the reason that I was going in there every afternoon. And she would come over to the table and she would say, cafe? And I would say the one word that I had down, which was yo, which is a kind of colloquial yes, yo. So she would pour me the coffee and kind of look at me longingly, waiting a second. And then I would look at her longingly, and then she would walk away. I had nothing. I had nothing to say to her. Then she would come back, cafe, and I would say, yo. And this went on for days and days and days and days until finally a couple of weeks passed. And one day she came over to the table and she said, cafe? And I said, yo. And she pulled out of her apron a dictionary and opened it and said, movie? And I said, yo. And she said, turning the pages of the dictionary, tonight? And I said, yo. And we met for a movie that night. It was a Star Trek movie that was in English and had subtitles in Czech. So I could understand it perfectly. And we sat there having a date, and it felt so normal. And it was lovely. Afterwards, we went to a restaurant and we passed that same little dictionary, which I still have downstairs, across the table, saying one or two words at a time to each other, her in English and me in Czech. And I learned Czech language that way. We dated for 2 years. Her name's Veronica. She's still a beloved friend in my life. This poem is about her. It's a poem also about a kind of conversion from one way of being to another way of being. If you see in the poem that there's new money and old money. In Poland, the zloty had undergone a kind of transformation from many zeros to no zeros. And so there were old zloty and there were new zloty. And zloty means gold. And then there's bread, and there's the ingredients of bread, salt, yeast, and sugar. And these things which look different on the two sides are actually of the same substance, though they're interchangeable for each other. So this idea of conversion has actually come up in my work only recently, because I began to think about moments of conversion in spiritual figures throughout, cross-disciplined religious studies, the Buddha, Paul, and other figures who deliberately chose a more difficult life than the one that they had been living, who willingly participated in this conversion to a new way of being. William James says that the strenuous life tastes better. And Rilke wrote to Franz Kappas, "We know little, but we must do the most difficult thing." That something is difficult is all the more reason for us to do it. There's something deeply spiritual about choosing the difficult thing, not just falling into it, but when we're cornered by it, as Milosz says, fully embracing it. The way Keats, when he knew that he had tuberculosis, chose his finest poetry. He wrote To Autumn and said, where are the songs of spring? Where are they? Think not of them. Thou hast thy music too, death. Thou hast thy music too, autumn, sickness. So for me, the conversion moment was having to let go of this facility with language, like that magician at the beginning of the poem, where the doves, like words, are just flying out of his coat. Giving up that facility of language and learning the preciousness of every word. And with that comes the tenderness and the infinite patience. One scholar wrote that infinite patience has immediate rewards. It's such a profound note. Infinite patience, if it's infinite, the awards are immediate. So the idea that it's what corners us is exactly the agent of our rising, whether it be history or whether it be illness or whether it be living in another country where no one speaks the language, whether it be being displaced or marginalized or lonely in your family, whatever it is, what corners us is the agent of our rising and becomes our guru. So it's also a poem, as I say, about words. The magician is pulling these words out of nowhere. And being in that space, I remembered again how incredible a gift this is, that we can use language to communicate our interior to the outside. And I ended on the word dove, not just because to be a dove poet is to stand on both sides, like the ingredients of bread and bread, or this slotty and that slotty. That is kind of dove-like, because Seamus Heaney always had that quality too of being a Catholic in Northern Ireland and standing on both sides. A diplomat is a dove poet, I guess you could say. But the word dove is exactly like what it describes. It's got this blunt beak front, and it's got this beautiful feather-like tail, dove. And to encounter words that way, one at a time, in that mindful way, like taking a walk through words, step by step, and feeling those words in your mouth, is really a gift that we can give ourselves whenever we're present enough to remember. It's what Deepa Ma says. Whatever you're doing, be aware of it, even word by word, sentence by sentence, encounter by encounter. Wow, here I am. Here are the doves flying out of my sleeves. It's absolutely magic. The dove. Days the crowds emerge at 3 p.m. In September, performers come out with their stands. The doves unfold like paper in a street magician's hands. And the new money is good for bread, and the old money for salt, yeast, sugar. The old money in one pocket, the new in the other. On the table is our dictionary. A long time for Nika to say, "You are tender," and me back, "You are tender." The bath, the white tub, Turkish coffee on a white chair. For a long while, I've been too fast to talk. I should take my time with words. The words are precious. An hour for the coffee on the fire. A dove. So coming back into it. Straightening the back. Softening the chest and the belly. Softening the muscles of the face. Just by a millimeter. Lengthening the neck. And as you place your attention in this space between your eyebrows and your forehead, think about something that has cornered you. Could be historical, political. It could be physical. It could be a hard relationship. Can you be with it just for a minute as it is? Not to fix it or to repel or to run away or to fight or to freeze in place. But can you treat it like the white lines of the highway? Say with Ram Dass, far out. That's the as it is in the ABCD meditation I like to use. Whoa, wow, far out. I was a young teacher. I thought, my students keep heckling me. They're tossing these tennis balls my way, and I'm playing tennis with them. I'm trying to answer their heckles. I'm not going to play tennis anymore. I'm going to be a wall. But even to be a wall is to defend, is to repel. Can I be empty? Can I let those tennis balls just pass right through me as though they're the white lines of the highway? And then can you just be here with that? Can you sit with that? Can you feel those white lines passing through? Far out. And see there's a little smile, a little curl of a smile that arrives when you remember that even change will change. Even death will die. It's like, even this pain that feels so constant and so permanent, is a white line on the highway. And then D, just don't judge yourself if you're not able to hold that for very long. Just being aware of it is the point of the meditation. That's the beauty. Just showing up is the whole point of the meditation. Breathing in to the count of 4. A little pause at the top. Breathing out to 5. Just 2 more breaths. The dove. Days the crowds emerge at 3 p.m. In September, performers come out with their stands. The doves unfold like paper in a street magician's hands. And the new money is good for bread, and the old money for salt, yeast, sugar. The new money in one pocket, the old in the other. On the table is our dictionary, a long time for Nika to say, "You are tender," and me back, "You are tender." The bath, the white tub, Turkish coffee on a white chair. For a long while, I've been too fast to talk. I should take my time with words. The words are precious. An hour for the coffee on the fire. A dove.